Thanks, David. Hi, everyone. My name is Zach Wyner from the Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare Institute, and I'm going to be doing a live demonstration of the mobile app. But first, I'm going to walk through a few slides to explain a little bit more about the three elements of the system that David described. The first element of the system is the web configuration portal. This is an image of the web configuration portal, and during the demonstration portion of my presentation, we'll see this in action. But the main thing to remember is that all study elements that are part of the mobile application system are configured in the WCP, hence the name Web Configuration Portal. You'll see on the top left of this screenshot, the concept of studies is enabled in this system, but it's important to remember that studies is the name chosen to represent the elements that contains questionnaires and other potential study activities. But as David mentioned, this system can be used as part of a clinical trial or other research or the sole source of collecting data. The other element to focus on here is the activity short title or key. This is the main element that tells the mobile app where to put responses generated for this particular survey. You'll see how this all comes together during the live demo, but in general, that key is entered here in the web configuration portal and within the storage environment. And by doing that, the system links the survey to the storage environment to the patient using the mobile app and makes for a seamless interaction of all system elements. The web configuration portal, to go into more detail, allows for configuration of study elements, and those include questions and research kit and research stack-based tasks. It allows for advanced branching logic, various data validations, and of course, real-time changes and updates to study content published via the WCP. It also allows for creation and management of study resources and notifications. So those are other ways to enhance and get patients to continue to engage with the mobile app system. As David alluded to, participants in studies generally will take questionnaires, respond to questions at their convenience throughout the day. So the ability to push additional resources, such as a link to an external website or notifications to the mobile app, are other ways to keep people engaged, all done through the web configuration portal. The final patient engagement element that's configurable is the study dashboard, which is an area within the app that shows various statistics about a participant's participation within a particular study, and we'll see more of that a little bit later. The next element of the three is, of course, the mobile application itself. And what we see here is on the left-hand side, the home screen that a participant would see when they first download the application. This is the FDA MyStudies branded version, but of course, it's designed to be rebranded for other organizations' purposes with other organizations' branding. The middle screenshot illustrates the gateway capability in that it is accessible or providing access to multiple studies run by the same organization. The study that we're going to look at in more detail during the live demonstration is the one with the red box around it about physical activity. On the right-hand side, there's a screenshot showing two surveys that are part of this physical activity study. We're going to look at the survey called Physical Activity, but overall, this slide is to illustrate the gateway capability of the app and the ease by which a participant can access a survey. Once a participant has downloaded an app, they would go through an enrollment and consent process. As David mentioned, the app supports enrollment and consent, so an entire study could be run through the mobile app system. So these series of screens show the flow a patient goes through when they first download the app, have registered, and have decided to actually enroll in a study. They first enter an eligibility token, which is that unique token that allows data to be connected potentially to an external data source and help pre-select and restrict enrollment to a certain group of participants. And we'll be walking through this in real time during the live demonstration. Finally, as I alluded to when talking about the WCP, the mobile app allows for various patient engagement features. On the left-hand side, you can see the dashboard. It's displaying their progress in the study. This person has completed 3% of the study. It also displays their adherence, meaning how many activities, surveys have they completed before expiration, and this person is 100% compliant. There's also a dashboard statistics and trends section, which are configurable statistics that can be configured by a researcher in the WCP and then shown to participants within their study in order to enhance engagement by giving participants back information about their progress. On the right-hand side is the resources section. You can see there's 3 resources always available to a participant in a study: the about, their signed consent document, and the ability to leave a study, meaning no longer receive surveys, no longer be counted as an enrollee in the mobile app. And then there's also custom resources. So these can be PDFs, links to external websites, or just some text that appears right in the mobile app itself. And these are configurable, again, via the WCP. The third element of the mobile app system is the storage environment. And the storage environment contains 2 separate servers that each require their own set of credentials. And this is by design in order to maintain a separation between patient data, patient responses, and patient identifiable information like email address and the signed consent form. So the system, both servers are based on the LabKey server, so they involve the exact same role-based access and robust configuration capability. What we're looking at here is an example of a study in the response server and one site and some responses for that particular site. So you can see there's a study ID, there's the enrollment token, there's response data tables, and then there's response JSON files, which are essentially pre-processed data tables. The storage environment is unique in that it automatically will configure or set up the database schema for the survey that's configured in the web configuration portal. So that really minimizes the development that's required in order to set up a study and publish study and get participants to enroll in the mobile app. As soon as the survey is configured in the web configuration portal and published and the participant responds, that data are put into the response server in the appropriate table without that table having to be set up beforehand. So it makes it very easy for a researcher or people with less technical background to just set up a few pieces of configuration and launch a study. The other piece of the storage environment is the registration server. So as I mentioned, this is also built on LabKey server, and it holds identifiable information such as email address used to register for the mobile app and consent forms. So no patient responses go here, just those identifiable pieces of information. And we'll see this in the live demonstration. Finally, how do all of these elements work together? So this is a standard data flow that shows how pieces of information move throughout this mobile app system. And I'll break it down step by step and then finally we'll get to see it in action. So step one, there's often a coordinating center or research organization that does the configuration. This implies or assumes that there's a protocol, there's some idea of a study question, and they're far along in their process, they being the researchers, and they do various configuration to create those surveys in the web configuration portal. In step two, the research organization would trigger a module in the response server to create enrollment tokens to eventually distribute to the potential cohort of patients, the pre-selected cohort. Then, if desired, in number three, they would create a crosswalk of those enrollment tokens, as you can see in the research organization box, to match those enrollment tokens to some other data set in which their selected cohort already exists and already contains data. This is a real value add to the system, since the enrollment token allows for pre-selection and restriction of any study to a particular cohort, but also matching to an external data set, so it can expand an existing data set or an existing registry that a research organization may have. Those enrollment tokens are distributed to the cohort via traditional methods, mail, email, or even telephone in number four. And those participants then could choose to download the app in number five and register and enroll. Number 6 and 7 both show data flowing from the mobile app into the compliant storage environment, as those represent registration and enrollment in the study. So the email and consent forms, as I mentioned, go into the user registration server, and then surveys and active task responses go into the response server. Number 8 represents studies being published to the mobile app. They may be published and available already or published continuously after patients have already enrolled. Finally, after participants have been responding, at any time, the research organization can download patient-reported data from the response server or consent forms from the user registration server for storage and further analysis in their own local environment. But the storage environment does include a UI in order to do various types of querying, analysis, and exporting. And our later presenters will go into much greater detail about the capabilities of the response server and how it allows the research organization to get at the data and the different ways it can interact with other systems. Now, we'll move to the live demonstration portion of my talk. We're going to look at the web configuration portal, the mobile application, and the storage environment, the response, and the registration servers. So right now, I'd like to show the app by itself so everyone can get a sense for what the app looks like before a participant has actually registered and done anything with the app. So as a patient, I've downloaded the app, I opened it, and I'm brought to a home screen, the gateway home screen. I have the option to get started. I can sign up. And I can look at the list of studies that are available in the app. So you can see in this app, currently branded as FDA MyStudies, there's one study available called Clinical Research in Bioethics. Throughout this demo, we're going to show how to configure and publish another study, and hopefully that illustrates how easy this system is to use. So now we're going to look at the WCP and actually begin doing some configuration. Sorry about that, everyone. Forgot that my email address has an underscore in it. So now I'm logged in to the web configuration portal, and you can see there are 4 elements that I can configure: studies, notifications, users, and my account. So the WCP is designed to allow different organizations to potentially utilize the system. For now, it's mostly supporting a single organization that could download the entire system, spin it up, but in the future, it will allow for multiple organizations to utilize this, essentially being an enterprise-level system where you only see your information, your studies. I'm going to click on Studies, since that's what we'll be working on today. Now there's a list of many different studies, some for testing, some representing pilot studies that have been done in the past. I'm going to click on the top one called FDA MyStudies webinar, and that's what we'll be configuring today. So I've clicked on FDA MyStudies webinar, and now we're looking at the information that can be configured for a particular study. On the left-hand side are all of the pieces that are configurable: basic information, settings and admin, overview, and so on. And we'll go through those one by one. And in the middle 2/3 of the screen are the elements that are being configured. So this study name is FDA MyStudies webinar. It has a category, a sponsor, a data partner, a duration, and a tagline. Some of these elements don't appear in the mobile app. They're just for organizational purposes for the researcher in the WCP. But some, like this study tagline, appear in the app to give a quick bit of information about the study to potential participants. So I'm playing the role of the researcher. At this point, I'm well underway in the planning process for my study, and I want to configure my study for distribution in the WCP. So we've configured the basic information. Now I'll take a look at the settings and administration. I can pick the platforms that are supported. As was mentioned, it's based on ResearchKit and ResearchStack. So I can create an app that's usable on iOS, Android, or both. In this case, I want both. I can set if I allow participants to enroll, if I want to use a particular anchor date, if I want to retain participant data, and whether or not participants can rejoin. Finally, at the bottom of the screen, you're able to manage administrators for the study. So this is an example of the role-based access applied or used in the WCP. You can give permissions to certain groups, certain people at your organization to view and edit, or be the project lead for a particular study. So if I were logged in as somebody else with less permissions, I may only see one study in a list and be able to view it. Next, I'll click on the overview. So in the mobile application, we're going to see not only the gateway page that introduces users, potential participants, to the overall app, but we'll see 2 screens that introduce them to the study itself. So this study, as we know, is called the FDA MyStudies webinar. So that's the title I give to the first screen. And I have a little bit of a description that participants will also see. You can add as many of these pages as desired to give participants a bit of information about the study before they enroll. And then, of course, they'll get more information as they go through the consent form, which we'll look at next. So part of the consent is eligibility. So we've discussed that this demonstration is showing a mobile app study that utilizes those enrollment tokens that help validate a person and allow for a pre-selected cohort to enroll in the study. So as David mentioned, it doesn't have to be that way. The system could just do an eligibility test or a token and eligibility test. So if you didn't use a token, you could have a study that was essentially open enrollment to the entire population of app users. We're going to use the token for this demonstration. So I've clicked mark as completed. Now eligibility gets a check mark. And now I'm in the consent section. So the consent section is very configurable. It's designed to allow for paper consent to be translated right into a mobile accessible piece of content. So you can divide up a paper consent form into as many sections as are necessary to make it easy to read on a mobile application. So for example, the first consent section here is called Overview. So when I click Edit, it's going to open that Overview section and show what pieces are configurable. As you can see, the title and brief summary and elaborated section are all configurable. So what this is designed to do is allow you to give participants a brief overview of that section as they scroll through it on their phone, and also write the entire section exactly as it appears in a paper document and have that section be concatenated together with all the other sections to form a signed consent PDF that could then be downloaded and kept in appropriate records. So it enables accessibility and understanding for the patient and record keeping as required for the researcher. The final thing to mention about the consent section is that ResearchKit and ResearchStack add or include some basic sections that they think are commonly used in clinical studies. So this one is called Overview. It is a ResearchKit/Stack consent section type, but if one of these didn't fit your needs, or if you wanted to call something some other piece of content, you could pick a custom consent section and name it anything you like and include any other text you would like. Next, we're looking at some questionnaires. So I pre-configured a questionnaire about physical activity, and I'll explain the different types of questions and what can be done as we go through this. So you can see this screen is very similar to the WCP screenshot that we saw earlier in the demo. I have an activity, short title, or key, which is the key for this particular questionnaire, and I have the title that participants will see in the mobile app. Below that, you can see 3 buttons: Add Instruction Step, Add Question Step, and Add Form Step. Each of these illustrate types of questions that can be added. And they're color-coded, so this first, to me, navy bluish color is an instruction step. So if I click Edit, you can see that an instruction step is just designed to provide information about the next question or series of questions that will appear in the mobile app. Next, question step. So those are all of the types of questions that can be configured and distributed to patients in the mobile app. So it has a key. I click on question level attributes, and I can configure the text of the question. So what question are you actually asking? a little bit more descriptive information if needed. And then the really important thing, what type of response is this? So ResearchKit allows for all of these types of questions and responses to be asked. And as David mentioned, it's extensible, so more could be added, but at the time it supports all of the question types available in ResearchKit and ResearchStack. Finally, after picking the question type and response type, you actually configure the response level attributes. So this question is a text choice question type. I've made it a single select response and entered the different response options that I want to be available to the participants. Next, there's another instruction step, so I won't click on that, but I'll click on a third type of question called form step. So I clicked edit on the form step. Again, there's an area to enter the question key, and then there are form level attributes. So a form step is designed to group questions together that may be related. So a common use case is a series of Likert scales, something like that, or if you're asking about medication usage, you can ask what medication are you taking, what's the dosage, all on one screen to make it very easy for a participant to respond to related questions all in one place. I'm going to click edit on the first question. How much low intensity activity did you get? And you can see it's the same set of metadata as if I was editing a question by itself. It happens to be part of a form or a group of questions. So I click on response level attributes, and the responses to this question are less than 1 hour, 1 to 2 hours, 3 to 4, etc. So I've clicked Save and clicked Done. Click Save and click Done on the top level. But now, for now, I'm done with this section called Questionnaires. So I click Mark as completed. And I get a checkbox. So I won't be configuring any active tasks as part of this demo, but I will mention that the system, because it's built on the ResearchKit and ResearchStack frameworks, is designed to utilize 2 active tasks, which are game-like mechanics that aren't just asking questions and looking for a response or a tap on a screen. They can utilize phone sensors or other elements to collect data. So I'll mark that section as complete. Now I'm in the resources section. So I mentioned earlier that resources are a way to increase or encourage patient engagement in the mobile application. And this is the area within the WCP where resources are configured. So it's as simple as clicking Add Resource. I can give the resource a title, pick the content type, set how long I want that resource to be visible in the mobile app for, and set the notification text to notify participants that a resource is available. So I've created a resource called Additional Information About Physical Activity. I'm going to make this resource a link to the FDA. I want this resource to be available all the time, so I won't set a period of visibility. I'll just click Save and click Done. The system correctly reminded me that I need to enter notification text to notify participants that a new resource is available. I'm now done with the resources section, so I'll click Mark as completed. Now we're looking at the notification section. The notifications can be configured and distributed at the study level, which is what we're looking at here, and also at the gateway level to all users of the mobile app across all studies that are available. I won't submit or create a notification here, but I did want to point out that there is that capability. So at any time throughout the life of a study, a notification can be sent to study participants, giving them some additional piece of information or some other encouraging bit of information to keep them engaged. Now that I've completed notifications, it takes me to the next section called the checklist. And this is just a list of items that are listed in the system to remind researchers all of the things that are generally need to be accomplished before a study can be published. There isn't actually business logic on this page. It's just a helpful checklist to make sure that everything has been done. So now, all elements of my study have a checklist, and I'm ready to actually publish it and make it appear in the mobile app. Before I do that, we're going to configure the back end, the storage environment, so this study can actually collect responses. So right now, we're looking at the storage environment, specifically the response server. And as I mentioned, this is built on LabKey server, so you can see that it says welcome to LabKey server. And as the user I'm currently logged in with, I can see just one project, the FDA MyStudies webinar project. This is to illustrate the role-based access. If I were logged in as myself, Zachary Wyner, I could see a whole host of other projects for various testing and demonstration purposes, but I'm playing the part of a researcher who only has access to the FDA MyStudies project. So within the webinar project, there's the actual study folder. I click on the study folder, and now I see the main screen, which should look familiar to the screenshot that we saw earlier. I have a place to enter a study ID, a place to create enrollment token batches, and on the very bottom, a section called lists, which are the same as data tables, where data from a participant are going to actually be entered and stored once they respond to a questionnaire in the study. So for a moment, I'm going to click back over to the WCP. I'm going to take the study ID and paste it in the study ID section in the response server and click Enable Response Collection. Now it's ready to go. The next step is to create a batch of enrollment tokens. So I clicked New Batch. I get a pop-up that asks me how many tokens I would like to create. So as you can see, you can create as many tokens as you need for however large a cohort you're looking to enroll. As this is a demonstration and I am a single person, I only need one token. Now I have my token. The next piece to configure is the registration server. And as I talked about, the registration server is designed to collect registration information from patients and sign consent forms. So the same project is configured in the registration server, the FDA MyStudies webinar. It has a subfolder with the same demo study name. So I'll click on that demo study folder. And now I see a section called Files. This is where the consent forms will appear. By default, email addresses are not surfaced and readily available, although they are accessible. It's by design that they're not readily accessible, so they're not accessed by researchers unless absolutely necessary. So now I'm going to add the study ID to the registration server, and at that point, the WCP, the registration server, and the response server will all be linked together via the study ID. Under Folder, I click Management to get to the details of this folder. There's a variety of configurable elements of the folder. What I care about are the module properties. So as you can see, we're being shown the hierarchy of folder structure. There's the top level or site default. Then there's the FDA MyStudies webinar project. And within that is the study that we're working on with the study ID webinar demo. So I've pasted that there, and then I will save my changes. Great. Now I've navigated back to the WCP, and I'm going to actually publish this study. You can see I can publish as an upcoming study, launch, publish updates, pause, resume, or deactivate. Right now, the only option available to me is, of course, launch. This is the first time we're launching this. And we saw before that the app didn't have it there, so it's not a magic trick. We're really doing this launching for the first time. The study has been successfully launched and is now live. So I'll click OK on that pop-up. And now I'm going to switch gears and play the role of a participant or a potential participant in this study. And we'll look at both the WCP and the app at the same time. So first off, the FDA MyStudies webinar study is now available in the app, but I'm still not enrolled. I've just downloaded this app. Maybe I received information from some research organization about the FDA MyStudies webinar study, and it's of interest to me. I fit the criteria, so I've downloaded the app, and now I need to actually sign up for the application so I can enroll in the study. So I'm a new user. I enter an email ID and a password, similar process to most mobile applications. I confirm my password. agree to the terms. Aha. My iPhone, excuse me, was a little too smart for me. So now I've received an email that I've registered for the app. So I'm going to switch to my Gmail. Open the email regarding registration for the app. And I'll take this verification code, copy it, and I'll go back to the app to finish my registration. I've pasted my verification code, and now I tap continue. It asks me to set up a passcode. So this passcode can be used similar to banking apps. If you don't want to sign out, and in general, the app will never sign you out, so you can continue to be logged in and access your status and studies. The passcode is designed to secure your information if you minimize the app or close the app but don't want to actually log out. So now I've completed my registration for the app. I haven't yet enrolled in the study, but you can see now there's a bit more information in the list of studies in the app. I have a completion percentage, and I can see which are active. So now, as a patient, I'd like to enroll in this study. So I tap on it, and it will open the home screen. There might be a few second lag.
Excuse us, we're pulling together the screen share for the web app. We'll be right back in just a second. Apologies for the technical issues. It seems we lost the connectivity that was allowing us to share the iPhone screen. We're working on that right now. We do have Plan B in place, and Zach is going to continue the demonstration using some screen shares that he captured earlier.
Great. So we saw this slide earlier. This is the process that we're going to go through live, I'll run through it again and show how it leads right into the questions that were configured and published to the app during the live demo portion. So as a participant, I had just registered for the app. I would then pick the study in the list of studies called FDA MyStudies webinar. I would then get this eligibility screen on the far left. I'd enter the enrollment token that we configured in the response server. As a real potential participant, that token would have been given to me either by email or mail or some other way. I would then swipe through a series of consent screens, the overview screen, the data gathering screen, and finally a review screen that concatenates all of those consent elements together. Then I'd be asked to sign with my finger to actually affirm as if I were signing a real consent form or a paper consent form. Then from within the study activity list, I'd be able to pick the physical activity study, and I would see the first instruction step that we saw configured earlier in the WCP. So I read the physical activity instruction step, and then I continue to the next slide, which shows the question, what is your favorite physical activity, with the list of questions, or with the list of responses, that are available. The far right-hand image shows what it looks like when I actually select a question, and then I tap Next to submit that question. This screen shows an example of the form step that was configured in the WCP. It starts with an instruction step titled Intensity Level. It then shows 3 different questions on a single screen, and on the far right, it shows what it looks like when a participant goes to select a question, or select a response, Finally, the last question that was going to be added to this survey, this study, is how much total activity did you engage in the last week? So as a participant, this would be asking me to think about how much activity I engage in and enter a number. You can see it gives a placeholder called hours, so you know it's looking for hours, and it allows for a numeric response, and it restricts the responses to numeric values only. So another example of data validations that are usable in the mobile app system. So then, if I were to enter that number of hours of activity, that could be configured to appear on the dashboard that we talked about earlier. So average number of hours, in my case, it would be 5, as on the previous screen. I entered 5. You would see 5 under that statistics section as a way to track the number of hours that you spent across all types of activity. So that's what I wanted to show in terms of live demonstration.
Let's switch back to the regular slides.
So we're happy to answer any questions. We're about to take a break now. But feel free, if you have questions or are interested in at a later point seeing more of that live demo, we're happy to hear about that in the questions.
And we're going to take a short break while Zach and the rest of the team review the questions that you've submitted so far. If you've yet to submit a question, feel free to use that pod in the lower right-hand corner of your screen to submit your questions. We'll take a break of about 5 or 10 minutes to review all those, and we'll be back to start answering questions in just a bit.